Hey dudes, welcome to Ask Tommy number 11. First question. Is there a question you'd never ask or would never ask again? Well, I would never ask demeaning questions in general. That's never cool. As for would I never ask again, well, that question I asked Tawny Katane, that I asked many female comedians before that, and maybe two female comics since. Other than that, for the most part, there's nothing really else that's off the table. Just no demeaning questions, I guess. What late horror star would you have loved to have talked to on Splat from the Past? Well, I'm going to have to go with the ones who died shortly before I started going to cons, especially the ones who died when I was in the hospital. Marilyn Burns, Betsy Palmer, Gunnar Hansen, Angus Scrimm, people like that. I wonder if Wes Craven, Toby Hooper, and George Romero would have done podcasts had they lived. If they did, they probably would have went on, the Indie Escape, whatever that one's called, the Indie Escape Brigade horror podcast that George's son used to be one of the co-hosts of. That what's his name, Scott Schiaffo from Clerks, who I've had on the show. He's one of the co-hosts of. I think George would have went on that show, But I would have loved to have interviewed like everybody I just mentioned now. That would have been great. Had they lived through the podcast pandemic boom, it would have been great to get any of those people on. I remember you saying that you were getting close to a Jack Hill interview. What's the status on that? I don't know. I mean, he did Greg Gilbert's podcast in 2023, and he gave Greg a weird energy. I mean, I watched the interview and I was just like, yeah, this is probably going to be his retirement podcast because I don't know, he just doesn't look interested and he's giving him stink eye the whole time, right? But then I just kept pushing, going, okay, let me be the retirement podcast. I didn't say that to him directly. I just thought it, let me be it, right? And since then, he's always given me excuses saying, I don't want to do any more podcasting. Yet he just did a 3-part podcast episode on my arch nemesis podcast, the New World Pictures podcast. He went on there and did a 3-parter with them. Each one's like 90 minutes. I'm like, what the fuck? I don't know what his problem is with me and why he doesn't want to do it. I've mentioned Beverly Washburn as a mutual friend, and for some fucking reason, Jack Hill does not want to do my podcast. Whatever, he's 93, he's entitled, whatever. I'm just giving up. What's your favorite Rolling Stones record? Let It Bleed, hands down. This was a turning point for the band. They had gone from blues rock popsters to psychedelic rockers with their Satanic Majesty's Request. Then Beggar's Banquet was a return to rock and roll with a little bit of folk in there and all that. But then Let It Bleed is where they become the world's greatest rock and roll band. My favorite song on the album is Midnight Rambler. No epic blues number has ever been so fucking mysteriously eerie and sounding like it came from Robert Johnson himself. I mean, it is a real scorching, toe curling, epic blues rocker that's almost 7 minutes long, and it is a fucking treasure. It's to me the best Rolling Stone song ever, and it wasn't even a hit. It's been a radio hit forever, but it's never been like a hit single. It's too dark to be a hit single, to be honest with you. So, Let It Bleed is their best album, in my opinion. They have never sound more raw and more sincere as they did on there, because after that, they had some gems on each album, but I don't know, there was something so decadent and something so excessive about the follow-up Rolling Stones albums that they just, I don't know, they didn't sound as sincere as they did on Let It Bleed, in my opinion. And I love Tattoo You. I mean, every song on that album is a winner. I love Tattoo You, but Let It Bleed for me is the best. When you interviewed Lorraine Landon back in 2017, why didn't you bring up Hundra? Because back then, I only brought up popular stuff that everyone knew, and the only time I brought up obscure stuff is when I had a person on who had a limited amount of credits on their IMDb, and as time wore on, I became more interested in the obscure stuff because I became a better interviewer and I got more interested in that. So that's why I did not bring up Hundra. I mean, it's her most well known role in like the underground cult movie world, because everybody knows her as the stewardess from Airplane 2 and those other sword and sorcery epics she did, you know. But I tried back in 2023 to get Lorraine back on here for the 40th anniversary of Hundra and do a deep dive, but since then, I don't know. She doesn't have an interest anymore. She stopped responding to me, and every time she responds to me, she says, she's got this going on or that going on, and then I hear her do another podcast. Whatever. Just like with the Jack Hill thing, I don't fucking care at this point. I've been doing this 8 years, and I'm loving the people I'm getting, and so I give up, at least for now, until another loophole sees the light. How are you the same person now as opposed to the person you were when you started Splat from the Past? When I first started Splat from the Past, I was still hung up on not being myself. I was Tommy Throwback Kovac, the fanboy. I had a lot of pent up anger in me from childhood, and I was still in the stand up comedy mode, even though I had stopped doing stand up. I was still in the comedy mode. I wanted to be a persona. I had a lot of pent up anger in me, and now that I'm older, thanks to the pandemic making me wiser and just more mature, and it taught me how to think on my feet more. I have a fuller understanding of where I come from, who I am, my growth as a human being, and I have empathy again. I lost my empathy during the drunken years. It has always it it, it was always about me during the time I was drinking, right? But before I started drinking, I was a kind, compassionate person, but I lost it for a long time. Now I try to be a better person a little each day. Even if my diabetes makes me cranky when I need food, I try to pace myself and take hold of my inner kindness because why not? Don't be an asshole. There's no reason to be an asshole. My favorite episodes are the ones where you reminisce with old Bay Area friends. Which ones are the ones that have impacted you the most? That's a good question. My favorite ones are the ones that I've done with like Maria Gallegos. She was great. That was like one of the early ones I did. I also love the ones I do with my regulars, Anna Marie Urbieta, who's one of my besties from high school, Shahina Ali, who was one of my bar buddies back in the day. Ones like that. I mean, I, I don't think I've done one that's like super meaningful and impactful, like my celebrity interviews, right? Are, but there's always hope that I can do one with a friend from the Bay Area and it can be just as meaningful as one of the celebrity interviews. I heard you say the Doors' first album is one of your favorite debut albums of all time. What are your favorite cuts on the album? Yes, you are right. Let's see. I love every song on that album, even the ones I'm not too crazy about, like End of the Night and Take It As It Comes. They're okay, but they're not the best. I tend to gravitate toward Break On Through to the Other Side, Soul Kitchen, 20th Century Fox, Whiskey Bar, Light My Fire, and of course, this will come as a shock to a lot of you. I Looked at You. Yes, so many people hate that song, but I don't know why I love it. It has a neo surf rock vibe to it with that flowing organ and guitar arrangement. I think they knew that they were kind of doing surf music because the genre was fizzling out, so they wanted to kind of homage it in their own style, and Jim Morrison, he did it the only way he could do it. So I think I Looked at You as a fantastic song. That's probably the closest to my absolute favorite song on the album. But I also love The Crystal Ship. I think it's the best ballad on the album. Like I said, I'm not too crazy about End of the Night and Take It As It Comes. So for me, The Crystal Ship is the best ballad. And The End is fucking awesome. I mean, that 11-minute Oedipus epic, it is such a fucking mind fuck. I love that song. Any nerd outs in 2025 stand out so far? Well, Lisa Mendy was great. Darlene Vogel, Carrie Remsen, all of these were like back in April. That was a great month. I had some great nerd outs during the month of April. Recently I had Megan Folsom Alexander on, and we did a nerd out. Oh my God, I did not expect that talk to go as long as it did. We went over 100 minutes, and it was fantastic. We did a lot of laughing. We had a lot of insight into our souls in that nerd out. It was a fantastic one. Um, Stuff like that. And Joyce Paustian, we did a good one last week that everyone should go take a listen to. Oh my God, she was having a ball during that one. She loves to talk. I love Joyce. She just loves to talk. She's like the Energizer Bunny. I just adore her. Do you have any nicknames? Yes. Growing up, I was TJ. You know, Now, my mom calls me TT. My buddy Sean Sapawaga back in high school, he called me T Nizzle. Some have called me T Bone, T Dog, stuff like that. But it's mostly Tommy now. We're TT at home. And I used to some people call me Tom, Tommy. Tommy Tom or something. But you can still call me Tommy. I don't mind being called Tommy. What would be your automatic deal breaker on a first date? Well, it used to be if the person didn't like Tom Hanks movies, that then I wouldn't want to see them again. Now that I'm hearing disturbing rumors about Mr. Hanks, it's not so much anymore. I guess if the person was easily offended, I would definitely not want to be with the person, let alone be on a second or third date with them. I want a woman who's going to be my partner in crime, who not only loves dirty jokes, but can tell dirty jokes that are just as funny as mine, if not better. That is the woman of my dreams, a woman that I can make laugh and she can make me laugh, and also is just kind, compassionate, and caring. It's funny. I combined those two things, and I said caring or comparing. I was like, no, compassionate and caring. What foods won't you eat? Um, Onions, unless they're onion rings. Brussels sprouts, olives. I'm sure I'm blanking on others, but that's all I can think of. I'm very hard to feed. I won't lie. I always have been. I don't like, onions or greens in my food, except for maybe like, beef stew that has celery and stuff like that, and whatever, cauliflower, whatever. But yeah, I'm very hard to feed. Is there a song that you constantly play while working out? Well, I'm not one of those guys. I don't have music playing when I'm working out. If I'm going to go listen to music, I want to dance and have fun, not work out. And if I'm working out or, out walking and stuff, I just want to focus on where I'm walking to and sweating and the sun and whatever. I don't need to listen to music to distract me. I am happy just where I am, and I don't need music. And I'd rather enjoy the music. If you could be any superhero, who would it be? Definitely Batman. He's the Dark Knight. Need I say more? I would be Spider Man, but I'm afraid of heights. Even though the powers would make me overcome my fear of heights, I'd rather be Batman, just not Spider Man or Superman because of the heights issue. You know, um, you know, I've never been a strong swimmer. I don't think I could be Aquaman. Even though he can't drown, still, I'm still fucking scared. I'd be fucking terrified to be Aquaman. In your interview with Anne Marie Howard, you said you would tell her privately about the Iowa girl you dated. Did you? Oh, I did. Did I ever? Um, about a month after we did that interview, just before Christmas, she finally had time to call me up, and she said to me, "Hey, I'm ready for the story." And she was driving all by herself, and I told her a story. It was a story I actually told on my most recent podcast with Andrea Lito, the finger quickie story. So go back and listen to that one. I've told it in other podcasts too, but the most recent one is the Andrea Lito, the finger quickie story. So I won't tell that story again. You did May Talks with Leslie Huntley Scarborough every year. Why did they stop? Well, we did three, one in 2021, one in 2022, and 2023. I asked her to do one in 2024, and it was going to be a nerd out. We weren't going to talk about sex or life or her career or whatever. We were just going to nerd out. And she said we had to move it until June, and then July. And then finally, she said she's a new grandma, and that's her focus right now. And she doesn't want to do any more podcasts. And I didn't ask her this past May, but maybe there's next May or whenever. I love Leslie. She is fucking awesome. She's no filtered and she's a total sweetheart and I adore her. And I wish her nothing but the best with her new grandchild and I hope she spends a lot of time with her. And who knows, maybe I'll have her back for a fourth and final podcast. When you were in LA at the Hollywood show recently, who were your favorite celebrity guests to meet in person? Man, so many. Stephen Talbot was great. John Kapelis, Judy Norton, Carney Wilson was great, despite her manager being a total rude cunt to me. And of course, Barbara Luna was fantastic. I've been talking about the belly button thing that happened when I met her. That was a dream and a half. Oh my God. I'm so glad I got to meet all those people and Mr. and Mrs. Bueller, Cindy Pickett, and Lyman Ward were fantastic. Jonathan Schmock. They were supposed to have Alan Ruck there, but he canceled at the last minute after he was announced at last minute. Sadly, you know what? I kind of knew he wasn't going to be there because he was on Succession. I mean, his career is booming now. Everyone's like, "Hey, it's Cameron from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. He was on Succession now. Hey, let's put him in our movie or TV show." So why would he sign autographs at the Hollywood show? Maybe he did previously. I can't remember, but that was sad. I didn't get to meet him because he didn't show up. A couple people I'm trying to remember didn't show up at last minute. Oh, Meredith Salinger was one. I've been trying to get her on the podcast forever, and I don't know why she doesn't want to do it. I hope she doesn't think I was making fun of her in in Lala Slootman's first interview because she did tell me she heard that interview. I hope she wasn't offended. I wasn't making fun of her and in Patton's relationship. I'm glad she's with Patton Oswalt. It's just to me it was just the most random couple that I've ever seen. As far as celebrity couples go, it was just odd. That's all. But I'm glad that they have that relationship. Good for them. But anyways, yeah, so that was a great, great trip. What time of day do you dislike recording an interview? Oh boy, early morning or late at night. The other day I did the Jeff Altman one at 9 in the morning. I was not in good shape, but I got through it thanks to coffee and Jeff's humor and energy. I do my best interviews mid noon. The only interview I've done late at night that I think where I was in top form was Alvin Alexis back in 2021. We talked an hour and a half at 8 o'clock at night. We were done by like 9:10, 9:15, something like that. I can't remember. And that was one of the best conversations I have ever recorded at night because he was so open and so deep. I mean, Alvin Alexis was a class act gentleman. I recommend anybody reaching out to him who loves Night of the Demons, reach out to Alvin Alexis. He's a great guy and a deep thinker, and I really enjoyed that conversation. And it was at 8 o'clock at night. If you could have a threesome with any of your guests, who would it be? Well, let me put it this way. These particular women have been nude on screen, and that's all you need to know. One is a self confessed freak, and one is vanilla yet freaky and loves the man that she's with. That's all I am going to say. What podcast do you really want to be on? Well, I've said this time and time again. The podcasts I want to be on don't want me, and the ones that I do want to be on want me, and I do them anyway because I know what it's like not being able to get guests. So for the ones I want to be on, I'd love to be on Pop Culture Retro. I don't know if Jonathan and Moosey want a fellow podcaster who isn't a celebrity to come on and stuff. I finally get it now why certain like podcasters just want celebrities on and they don't want fellow podcasters. I think it's an ego thing of like, afraid of getting a critique on their interview styles and just thinking that they're going to be humiliated or embarrassing, which I would never do to anybody. I mean, I can do it. I am capable of doing it, especially if a podcaster is a prick to me, but I would never do that. Media Path is another. I've had Fritz and Wheezy on. I would do Stacey Lane Wilson's Rock and Roll Nightmares podcast and Christy Alexander Hallberg's Rock is Lit if I had a rock and roll book out, because that's their demographic. I love them and they're great people. I'd love to be on Tales from Hollywood Land, which is co-hosted by my recent guest Julian Schlossberg. Front Row Classics, which is an old Hollywood podcast, just as much as Tales from Hollywood Land is. Even Harvey Brownstone's show, I'd love to be on. I mean, I'm so sick of talking about cult movies. I did Retro Life for You. I did Ninja Pop. I've done several, but I'm sick of talking about movies. I do that plenty on this podcast. I want to go deep. I want to talk about fucked up shit that happened in my background. I want to talk about my journey because I'm no influencer. However, I want everyone to know that you can be a fuck up and still make your dream happen. You can get redemption. My message is simple. I mean, I've said it before. People like Lydia Cornell and Dee Dee Pfeiffer and Susan Demanti have asked me to go on their podcast, but they haven't fallen through with it. Susan told me recently she's thinking of relaunching a new season of her podcast, and if she does, I'm definitely on it this season. I think she feels bad for not having me on the previous one. If Christine Blackburn asked me on Storyworthy, I'd be flattered, but I don't know if I could do it. I'm a lousy storyteller. I always miss important components of a long story, and I stutter a lot or forget, and if I got guaranteed that there was going to be some editing on that episode, then maybe I would consider going on Storyworthy. But I'd rather just be a fan of that show because I am a huge fan of that podcast. Dawn Brody, who I had on last Christmas season, she invited me to come on HILF next season when I was in LA. And I said, sure. So we are going to do it. I'm not going to say what we're going to HILF yet. We're definitely not going to HILF Edward Bernays like the podcast we did back in December hinted that that's who I would love to HILF. There's so many other people I'd rather HILF, people who are in my wheelhouse of old Hollywood or rock and roll. And finally, what guest were you looking forward to having on again, and then something happened where it didn't happen? Well, a few months ago, a guest that I had on back in 2020 unfriended me on Facebook because she got offended by a meme I posted, a joke meme, and she was one of two guests of mine who unfriended me over this. They thought that the joke represented Trump and MAGA, which it doesn't. This particular guest from 2020 told me that she was writing her memoir and that she was going to come back on when it was finished and ready to come out. Well, every year since then, I've touched base with her about coming back on, and it still hasn't been ready. So she unfriended me. And I'll be honest with you, she was kind of bitchy anyway, but I still give her a pass because she was a big part of my childhood with this thing that she was a part of. And I felt bad for her because of things that had happened to her in her life. But at the same time, she's also a history revisionist, and I just don't need that negativity anymore. And the other guest, she's an even bigger history revisionist, so I'm glad I'm never going to have her on again. That's it. Later, dudes.